Monday morning. I hope you're well. All right, so as I was reading through the Bible this morning, what did God give and show? Well, first of all, I took my verses out of a couple places, but they developed in Proverbs chapter 29, 25, and 26. It says, "The fear of man bringeth a snare, but whoso putteth his trust in the Lord shall be saved." Many seek the ruler's favor, but every man's judgment cometh from the Lord. And I kind of wrote that down and just left it there because I knew that God, those were some of the verses he wanted for me today. And then I began to read, and today I started the book of Exodus. And in that first chapter, we read about what happened after Joseph died, and all that generation died, and the people, grew great, and the new king didn't know them, and he, didn't want them to rise up against them one day. And so the Pharaoh had commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill all the Hebrew children, the boy children that were born, but verse 17 says, "But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive." And it kind of developed a thought in me, and I was just thinking about fear, favor, and fulfillment. And so let me go ahead and read the other verses real quick while I'm coming to a stop, because that would be what's safe. It says, therefore, verse 20 in chapter 1, "Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses." So first of all, we're all going to be presented with choices to fear man or to fear God. We're all going to be presented with choices to choose what the world would have us to do or what God would have us to do. So what are we going to do in those situations? Well, might as well stop and consider it now, because again, you've already either been in that position or you're going to be in that position again. And so I got to thinking about that word fear and the fear of man. And, the fear of man causes us to worry about ourself, about our well-being, about our own lives. It really causes a great deal of selfishness, okay? We only want to look at us and how something's going to affect us. And then it said, every man wants the ruler's favor. And so I got to thinking about that word favor. And, when we want the favor of man or someone, then that makes us only want to look at our opportunities. So first we look at ourselves, and then we only want to look at our opportunities. How will this benefit me? What can I get from this? Me. We begin to be very self-centered. That's what fear and that wanting favor of man causes. And then lastly is the fulfillment. It never said that there was a fulfillment of man. And I got to really thinking about that, especially with the Hebrew children. And it said that they feared God, and they didn't only think of themselves. Now, they could have died, they could have, had their lives on the line, but they didn't consider themselves. They considered God and what was right. And then they could have had the favor of the Pharaoh, and they could have struck a deal with him. You want us to do this? Okay, well, we would like to be compensated. We would like to be honored, whatever. They did not do that. They rather wanted the favor of God, and so they chose the way of God. And then I was thinking about that fulfillment, which we read later in that chapter, that said because they did that God built their houses. He gave them big families. He made them. He built them. And we know that when the Lord builds the house, that no one can tear it down. And so a couple things also about fulfillment. Number one, there were two things I thought about fulfillment, is there's really not a fulfillment in man, because number one, everything that a man could give you, even the devil himself, right? The devil had, on the mount when he tempted Jesus, or was trying to tempt Jesus, I'll give you, you can rule over all this stuff. Like, he has the ability to present certain things to us. But just like man, just like the devil, any of them, they are finite. God's infinite, and he's the God that can open doors that no man can shut, and that can close doors that no man can open. So anything that a ruler or the enemy would even have to offer us, it's not worth it, because at any point in time, God could be done with it. You know, he created all things, he gave and provided all things are of him and from him and by him. So at any point in time, he can say, I require it of thee, just like in that parable with the rich man. You know, your life is required of you. And he had all that stuff, and it didn't benefit him any, you know. So God's favor is so valuable, and we don't want to miss out on that. And I think the other fulfillment was is that, I don't remember at this moment, sorry, I'm a bit distracted this morning, but nonetheless, listen, we are to not fear man, not be caught up in a snare, but we're to trust in the Lord, because there is none other, right? I want to fear him. I know one of the things that I wanted to say was that when God asks us to do something, it doesn't usually ever only bless us. And I believe I've said this before, but if they would have, you know, thought of themselves only, all those lives would have been lost. But no, when God blesses us, when we have we fear him and we have favor, everything that he gives us, really, we can use to benefit others. And so that was another thought that I had. And anyways, I hope this can encourage you not to be fearful, not to fear man, not to want the favor of man, and not to think that man's going to fulfill you, because none of it will, right? We can never be satisfied, right? The eyes of man are never satisfied, and that's why hell is, you know, enlarged. I know this was not as put together as I would like it to be, but that's all right. I pray that you have a blessed day, and that today you only fear the Lord, and you receive his favor, and then you receive his fulfillment, because all judgment comes from our God, and praise the Lord for it. Have a blessed day.